It's funny. I was looking up the Balmorhea records because I knew I reviewed one for one of the newsletters I did when
Oh,
I because
really?
at that time, same exact time you're talking about is when I was working at the Kim's that was on First Avenue, Kim's, which was no Mondo Kim's originally, and this was called Kim's Video and Music.
Oh, interesting.
And I actually found the review of Stranger
Oh, yeah, that came out, I think,
on Western Vinyl.
yeah, I think that came out February 2012, something like that.
Yeah, I found a little blurb I wrote for, which is kind of funny. I'm like, I keep everything, so I was
Great.
able to pull
I
that
definitely
up.
never saw that. I don't think I ever saw that.
Oh
Or
yeah, this was like it's just for like the Kim's newsletter. It was like it only went out to sort of like newsletter subscribers.
I
We
see.
used, yeah, we used to just put together weekly reviews and whatnot. So that's kind of funny, but yeah, but that's the last record I've heard. So I still need to hear the Wind, or just Wind, right? Or is it the Wind?
Oh, and
The
we
Wind.
we have one from 2017 that I'd recommend as well called Clear Language.
Okay, I'll check
It's
it out.
yes, Stranger was kind of like a kind of a maximalist effort, and then now we've kind of swung the opposite way
Okay.
intentionally. Yeah.
So now, so what do you guys? What's the plan for your? How are you guys promoting it basically right now? Are you gonna do anything or?
I mean, we've done some like podcasts and other just normal music press stuff. We have a KEXP session coming out next Wednesday, and we're recording a live performance of the material that will be premiered. Well, it'll no audience, but it'll be like playing the full album.
Nice.
Got well and recorded well, and probably do some shows in the fall, hopefully in the U.S., like select engagements, and then we'll do like full tours starting next spring.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I look forward to checking it out. I tried. I was telling you, I was trying to order for the record store, and yeah, it was on back order already. So I guess I mean, that's a good thing in a way.
Yeah, I do. We sell them directly. I have them here in the room I'm in. But
Oh, so like Bandcamp.
I ran out the day you emailed me. I literally had just put the last one in the mail, but I got some more coming. Hopefully, the next couple of days.
All right, I'll order it up. That's what
Uh,
I'll do. So yeah, man, I have a bunch of records here. I don't know how many.
do
What do you got picked out?
um, I got kind of like an early inspiration. I got some couple of new genres and new things I've been, or like in the past year or two that I've kind of gotten into.
Okay.
I have a Ray record, then I have maybe like 7 or 8 records from like the late '90s, early aughts that were, possibly flew under the radar for some people that
Mhm.
are that are very important to me in my own
Okay.
listening and music making.
I have sort of. I mainly picked early stuff. I don't have anything sort of more current, but it's all sort of like some of it will be obvious, some of it will not be so obvious, but all very sort of important records in my sort of, you know,
Yeah.
germination of a musical taste, I guess.
The first thing I wanted to show is something I've shown on my own channel a lot, and I'm sure you are sick of hearing about this album and this band.
I have
Uh,
that one. Yep.
this is the first release from Tortoise, Chicago band. This is from '94. It's the 13th release on Thrill Jockey Records. And we were talking before this on email about, or I guess it was in a YouTube comment about Mogwai. And I discovered this album and Young Team on the same day.
Well, that's
In my
big.
big day for me. In my friend's older brother's bedroom, we were like in there playing video games or something, and I think this is, I don't know, some like '95 maybe. So
Okay.
this is out about a year, and Young Team had just come out, and he had the Young Team poster on the wall, and he was playing this CD in there, and I was like,
That's
"What is this weird music?"
that's a good friend right there, man.
Yeah, and he was kind of like an asshole older brother. He's like, he's like, he was just like didn't want us to touch any of his stuff.
The old
So,
older brother thing, yeah.
but he like somehow was into all this really cool music. He was probably, I don't know, a junior in high school or maybe a senior at that point, a few years older than me. I think I was a freshman, and maybe summer after 8th grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And, he showed me this, and later that day we went to the record store and I saw it, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna get this. I had just gotten my first turntable, so going like middle of high school, So it must have been in ninth grade, somewhere before 10th grade. So I remember putting this on my little cheap Sony turntable and just turning it, flipping it over and over and over. Every night I would study and put this record on, and just totally fell in love with, the kind of lack of rules and lack of strict genre definition. With it's very bizarre music. And I
at
feel
that
like
time to hear that, because it was really out of step with everything else that was happening. I mean, who else was doing that?
And I mean, I like lived in the suburbs outside of Dallas, so especially there, I was into like punk and Fugazi and like hardcore and stuff like that. So coming and hearing this, I mean, it kind of blew my mind.
Totally.
So I started really getting into. I got a bass guitar after hearing this, and started learning and thinking about music in a less like pop sensible way, thinking about it more as like an expression rather than like a formula of verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, that kind of thing.
Now that's the same copy you bought back then? That's
same copy. Yeah, I bought a new copy, and they did a 20-year 20-year remaster on it
with the brown sleeve. I think that's the one I have. Yeah.
That actually sounds a little bit better sonically, but I still keep this. I don't play this one though. This is pretty scuffed up from,
90s, the 90s.
25 years.
Well, I was going to show something different, but since you showed that, I don't know. I bet you know. I'm pretty sure you know this band. I would have a hunch. But it is Califone. Also on, this reissue is on Thrill Jockey. It was originally on a label called, forgetting what it was, but this is the first album I heard by them, called Roomsound. And it's from like 2000, 2001. Are you familiar with the Califone at all? Or
I think just by name, and I have a Japanese compilation of all these Chicago bands from that era, and they're one of the artists on that. So I've only heard a handful of songs, but definitely remember seeing that name in the Thrill Jockey little insert catalog thing.
Yeah, they picked up some of their. Well, they signed to Thrill Jockey in a few albums after this, but this was originally on a different label. I'm slipping my mind, but now Thrill Jockey has reissued all of them. It's
nice packaging.
Yeah, it's expanded and everything. And then I have a bunch of them. This is the first EP on Fly Daddy. It might have been Fly Daddy that did this, but in any case, it's like Tim Rutilli was of the band Red Red Meat. And he started this around like 99, 2000. It's just really, it's actually not unlike Tortoise, except a little bit more rootsy, a little more sort of acoustic based, but a definite sort of forward thinking experimental approach to how they do sound. I've seen them live, and you wouldn't think it would come off as well as it does live, because it's really intimate music in a lot of ways, and it's subtle and it's sparse, but live it sounds beautiful. Instrumentation. Yeah, good question. I mean, there's a lot of percussion to it. It feels more acoustic in nature, but they'll use, bits of noise and, tape loops, and really a lot. They really throw a lot into what they're doing, but they definitely, they write songs. I mean, the songs all have like pretty much a chorus and, somewhat of a traditional feel, but, they experiment a whole lot.
Cool.
And this is Roomsound. Like I said, from actually it was a Dead Oceans, not Thrill Jockey. I think their middle records are on Thrill Jockey, and then Dead Oceans started reissuing them. So
that's cool.
Yeah, they were like a band I was collecting on CD. I first heard them on the WNYU, the NYU radio station, which turned me on to a ton of bands. And I heard them there, and they opened up for Modest Mouse on one of the times I saw Modest Mouse. So I got connected to him that way.
I don't remember that tour, or I remember those bands, those names together. Probably.
Yeah, I think. Well, I have Modest Mouse to show too, but I think of Brian Deck or Tim Rutilli. I'm not sure who it was. Like, they actually played banjo on Moon and Antarctica. I believe that's correct. I could be wrong, but on the banjo tracks. So
it's funny. We're like in the same wheelhouse in terms of our age and what we were into at, in the late high school going into college age.
Yeah. I didn't have, it sounds like you're coming from a bit more of a hardcore or sort of punk background, which I had some of that, but right around that time, 2000, it sounds like, there was a lot of the same discovery of these types of, some of these indie rock groups that were sort of well known, but just sort of, developing and everything. And it was a real golden period for that kind of music, I think. So
Yeah, the same friend's older brother also turned me on to shellac right around that time.
I got that
Like
in my pile too.
he was into like very interesting, like in basically any suggestion he gave me, I knew it was going to be good. And so once I got into that, I was like, I kind of left punk and like that kind of stuff in the back, and like, of course, still have a soft spot in my heart. But
Yeah.
then I went to university on my own, and it was just like early days of the internet, like ordering 7 inches with cash in the mail to a record.
Oh yeah, mail order, the best.
Yep.
Well, all right. So we're gonna play a little bit of Califone and Tortoise.
I kind of got out of vinyl, maybe like the mid aughts until I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 2014, and I bought a new turntable, not a nice one, just like a middle of the road one, and I'd never been into jazz ever in my life. I knew the Getz Gilberto, the samba kind of one.
Yep.
And my dad played like some Johnny Smith, who was like a guitarist, like solo jazz guitar. That's kind of the extent of my knowledge of jazz. Anytime I ever heard kind of 70s free jazz or like Ornette Coleman or like later period, spiritual realm of the Coltrane stuff, I was kind of always turned off from it just because of the lack of melody, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I had just I never got into it. I never gave it the time. I never sought it out. I never had someone explain to me what was happening and why it was happening and the history. And I was at a friend's house, and he had just gotten a really nice turntable, and so he started getting into audiophile pressings and reissues and these things. And I'd never heard music so clearly. He put on a Roy Orbison record, I think, that was an ORG reissue, and I'd never heard playback from a turntable be so clear. And he's like, "Oh man, you should start getting into jazz. They keep reissuing all these analog, redone and full analog, reissues of all these old like Blue Note records." And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard Blue Note. I know who Miles Davis is. That's kind of the, obviously I've heard all the samples of the Herbie Hancock stuff through all that stuff. But this is the one he played for me. Grant Green is the guitarist. And this is, as a guitarist myself, I could relate to this pretty easily. And it's pretty digestible and approachable in terms of, there's nothing bombastic at all about this. This is originally came out in '65. And the opening track is called Idle Moments, which is the title track there.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, it's maybe 10 minutes plus. So I was kind of into the kind of longer format, just super laid back. And this is kind of one that kind of broke open Pandora's box, so to speak, for jazz on me. Okay. And this is from Analog Productions, which if those of you who are into audiophile, like reissues, they're kind of the benchmark of quality these days. But yeah, that's one that kind of set me off on the jazz path.
That's a beautiful one. Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with that. I had a couple of Grant Green records, but they were sort of like '80s reissues, and I'm since lost not lost them, but I since have purged them. But a wonderful guitar player. I mean, one of the key records I got into with jazz was the Kenny Burrell John Coltrane album, which is a wonderful album. At the time, I mean, and I feel like there's still sort of a stigma against jazz guitar. I hear this all the time. Like people who are into jazz, be like, "Nah, I'm not really into the guitarist." I'm like, because as a guitarist myself, I'm like, well, what's the deal? What's this bias against guitar players that I hear about in jazz?
Yeah, that's bizarre because it's such a normalized standard thing in Western music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand I'm not into flute in jazz or vibraphone or something. That makes a little more sense, but jazz is, I mean, guitar and jazz seems pretty, harmless.
Well, it's a versatile instrument. I mean, it's a lot that it can do. So, yeah, well, nice. And I was just listening to an Analog Productions yesterday. What was it? Oh, it was the Herbie Hancock Headhunters, which is a really great remaster, reissue.
Funny artwork on the front.
Oh yeah, something else. Well, I don't have any jazz records in my pile. I will pick something that is as close to jazz as I have here, and it's another band I ooh, hey now, another band I try to get all the records that when I can, because I always feel like they offer something different. Deerhoof, and this is Reveille. This is from, again, the same time period, 2002. Um, yeah, this band sort of brings together the skronk and the, the sort of free jazz aspect, but with a bombastic, rock quality to it. And this is the first album I ever heard. There's a song called "This Magnificent Bird Will Rise"
Hmm.
that totally knocked me out. I don't remember where I heard it, um, but it starts with the singer Satomi Matsuzaki just sort of doing something a cappella, and all of a sudden these drums kick in, and it's just the most massive sound. And it just was one of those tracks when you hear it, it just sort of like you stop seeing your tracks. Like, what's this? Maybe I heard it in a shop, maybe I heard it on WNYU. I can't remember, but
Cool.
this is, yeah, all their records are interesting, and it doesn't seem like they get sort of the respect they deserve. I mean, you can get these all now pretty cheap. This was originally on Kill Rock Stars, and this is a polyvinyl reissue. So, but there is a jazzy aspect to what they do. Their drummer is incredible, Greg Saunier. He
Oh
just he plays the drums like a jazz musician would. So
the guitarist is also quite revered too, as well. Is that right?
yeah, they changed. Like, John Dietrich is still in the band. I think there was another guitarist, Chris Cooper, I think, is no longer. But yeah, I think it's John Dietrich. They have two guitarists in the band now. They're both incredible. I've seen them live too. Like the way they
I remember watching some video on YouTube of someone from that band talking about their pedals or something at some point.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. They kind of like approach what they do from like it almost seems from like a limited means or like a DIY aesthetic, but I don't think that's actually the case. They actually seem like they're kind of gear folks for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they had an album last year that was just released during the pandemic, which was excellent. I mean, they really, to me, they do no wrong. So
Cool.
Deerhoof. So yeah, we'll play a little Grand Green and Deerhoof.
All right. So next is a genre I know you know and appreciate and collect and listen to a lot. Not a genre, a region of the continent of Africa, West Africa to be
Yeah.
exact. Um, got on a huge kick of the kora instrument, Balake Sissoko Tumane Diabate. I think we've discussed this in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I also came across this release from Sahel Sounds of a Senegalese guitarist named Tidiane Thiam. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that.
I've seen this, okay, somewhere, but yeah, it looks beautiful.
Great. I think this came out in the last summer or last fall, early fall. This was recorded in a like completely live in a like kind of one take kind of situation. I guess at a house somewhere near his house or his town. He lives kind of in the north part of Senegal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's recorded at night. I think this picture must have been taken during the recording. Looks like it's outside. In between the quiet parts, when the guitar fades away, it's just guitar, nothing else, single instrument, and you can just hear the crickets and kind of the night, the insects of the night chiming in like softly. Like as the song ends, you always hear like the background of the insects outside. It's really really kind of fascinating.
Love that. Nice.
Especially through headphones or if you're listening kind of loudly. But really tasteful. It's like very very tastefully played, and it kind of actually there is a song called Homage to Tumani Diabate, so it kind of takes some similar cues in terms of like the kind of kora runs that those guys do, where they play a bunch of notes up and down and come back to the same note. So he kind of mimics that a little bit on the guitar, but it just seems like just a kind of a cheap guitar, recorded somewhat crudely, but still sounds decent on the pressing. But that's a label, Sahel Sounds.
Sahel Sound, yeah.
I
I do have a few records on Sahel Sound. I should go grab one. This is this is reminding me of a couple of records I should go grab. But yeah, I mean, such a unique sound. There was a time in my life where I was working in distribution for Warner Music Group, and we were promoting the World Circuit label and through Nonesuch.
Yep.
And stupidly, I had a chance to go see Toumani Diabate. I did not go. You know, bad mistake. You make mistakes. When you're exposed to like shows every day, sometimes you like just want to go home.
Exactly.
and I missed Diabate that night. But I have all of those CDs that I since have bought the Ali and Toumani record. And I have CDs of some of the other Toumani Diabate and Ali Farka Touré, but just beautiful transcendent music. I mean, so relaxing and just interesting.
The new release he did with the London Symphonic Orchestra, I think it just came out. I think it's on vinyl too. I haven't seen it yet, but
Toumani Diabate with the wow, awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice, as you can imagine.
That sounds incredible. I'll look that up too. Well, hold on, I'm gonna go grab one record.
Yep.
Since we're talking African, I'll show one of my favorite, more rock but Western African guitarists, Bombino.
Oh yeah, great.
He's amazing. I've had the pleasure of seeing him at least 3 times now. Every time he came through the city. This was the album that it's called Agadez. He's obviously he's from Niger, from the Sahel as well. And I don't remember again where I heard this, but this is from 2011. This is sort of like his first LP. He had something previously on Sublime Frequencies, the group Bombino, which is excellent, but this is the one that sort of like knocked my socks off.
Great. Yeah, I've listened to his stuff. The guitar tone is so like clear and present.
Yes, big time. And his band is great. He tours with a rhythm guitarist he tours with his rhythm guitarist and I think a few background singers, but then here he picks up his band and they're incredible. The band he picked up in the States when he tours here is just, they're on top of it. This was a key record for me. Like when my son was born, we were listening to this album a lot.
Nice.
That whole summer we were playing this all the time. And this is I believe his first official album. I've since collected most of them. He's produced records with Dan Auerbach and Dave Longstretch, which are good. I actually think they're better than people give him credit for. I think there was some feeling as if, their groups or producers are trying to sort of Americanize what he's doing or sort of make it for a pop audience, which there might be some truth to, but I find those records to be great as well. Although this one still ranks as my favorite from 2011.
I feel like you can hear a little bit of the influence in Dave playing on the Dirty Projectors stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely coming from it. Like it's hard to sort of compare him to anyone who in sort of American music. He must be someone who's listened to a lot of African music himself. But I remember just buying this at the first show that he did. I think this was like privately pressed at the time. I don't even know, but a wonderful sort of, he bridges the gap from, he's like the Hendrix of Western Africa, if you could put it, if you want to think that, if you want to come to it that way. So
the rest of my little stack here is just stuff that I was super into, like late 90s, early aughts, that are rarely talked about these days, and even then, which are all kind of seminal records for me in my own coming of age, so to speak.
Okay, let's see.
I just have them alphabetically. I don't know how much time we have. I don't know.
I'll go as long as you want.
All right, the first one. So
I got a lot here myself, so
good. Well, we can rifle through them.
Yeah.
The first one for me here is, for those of you who follow me, I moved to LA like 4 or 5 months ago from Austin, and then other than a spell in New York for 2 years, I've lived in Austin for almost 20 years. In my opinion, the best band ever from Austin, Texas, is the American Analog Set.
Dude, I was just today, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was just today looking at trying to order a copy of that today. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's funny.
Instead, I ordered No by Heart, which I know well. I just didn't own it on vinyl. But today I was looking at that record. It's not cheap.
No, I think all these ones were on Emperor Jones.
Yes.
Records. This is from '96.
The first one, right?
I don't know if it's the first one or not. I don't know, but they have like maybe 3 or 4 that all have a very similar typography and all in the same label. I'm sure they didn't press more than 1,000 or 2,000 of these, if that.
Great band, man.
Oh man, incredible band. really, really precise rhythm section. Very, very interesting bass. The drums are, for those of you who don't know, the drums are usually hot rods or brush sticks, very staccato, like robotic almost, and they have vibraphone, very soft guitar, and like kind of very hushed, quiet singing.
Yeah, it's like a motoric rhythm. It really is, like in a lot of ways.
So these guys are, if you're from Austin, especially from the 90s, they were played all the time and they're very highly regarded. The singer and guitarist and main songwriter Andrew Kinney had a split release with Ben Gibbard. He toured with Broken Social Scene as part of their band for a couple of years. Now is a scientist full time. So he's like super smart.
He's still in Texas or what?
Yeah, he still lives in Austin. We were decent friends throughout the time I lived there. And funnily enough, he lives next door to the drummer of Explosions in the Sky.
Okay.
The
Nice.
two kind of Texas Austin royalties of that era. The drummer, American Analog set, Mark, is I think getting his PhD in Russian literature at University of Texas, and he's kind of in like the cool part of town where like the creative, artistic people live. Like you always see him, riding a motorcycle around there, and
yeah,
the coffee shop. So it's kind of cool. Like I mean, for me, as coming to Austin, 17 or 18, and seeing these guys play and packed houses and everyone knew all the words, and like another one of the bands that I found from my friend's brother, he had their first 7-inch, and I was like, what is the American Analog set? What does that even mean?
Yeah,
I know what it means, but great music. I had a mini disc player, and on their final show, I recorded the whole set on a mini disc, and it sounded amazing. And then my mini disc player broke, and then iPods came out, and like, no, you can't get mini discs. I mean, I guess I could go on eBay, but
I used to have a mini disc multi-track recorder, which I used to make recordings on, which I sold to someone and made a lot of money on it. For some reason, there was like I don't know. I'm not sure why there was a mini disc demand, but great band. I mean, that's a band that I kind of don't think their records are ever going to get reissued because the people that have them aren't getting rid of them, and so the value has gone up. But I don't know if there's demand to do a whole new pressing. I think there would be. I would be all over it. But
you mentioned Know by Heart, which is I think their second to last full length.
Yeah, there was Promise of Love. The purple cover came out after. I have that. And then there's the Golden Band. Don't have that. And then there's one other one I do have on vinyl.
From Our Living Room to Yours.
Yes. Yeah. So
they're great. Yeah, actually, I bugged Andrew every time I would see him. I was like, dude, I know you have copies of this. Like, let me buy one. Like, I don't want to spend like $150. And so one day we met for coffee, and he had like a canvas bag with all the. I had the Golden Band and Know by Heart. That was it. And he had every single other one in that bag. And he's like, here you go. And he's like, happy birthday and Merry Christmas. Like, I was like, how much do I owe? He's like, no. He's like, just take him.
That's
I was
fantastic.
Like, he's
fantastic.
Yeah, actually, Balmorhea, we used the American Analog set's vibraphone on every tour for like 4 or 5 years.
It's a beautiful sound. I mean, there's a few songs on that. Well, they use it on a bunch of songs, but there's some songs where it's like just the most beautiful part of the song. Really, it just stands out in such a wonderful way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're a special band, and like great guys, and like really, really nice people too. So that just makes you love it even more.
I love it. I can't believe it. I was today. I ordered Know by Heart on Tiger Style. It's the record I know the most.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if I want to say their most pop album, but it's definitely their sort of most like song based record. The ones that has the least amount of length on the songs. But
yeah, it'd be possible not to like that album. I think.
Yeah, just came out on 9/11, which was the only unfortunate.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, and I have another record in this pile or it might have come out the week before. It came out either 9/4 or 9/11 because Tuesday used to be release date.
Because Tiger Style was on Wooster, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
That's so funny. Wow.
Because I think we talked a little bit about Tiger Style because they had, what was the other band we were talking about that was on that label? Yes. Yep. Yeah, some cool bands. I don't, most of those bands, like I think people who knew those bands and have those records are like, they're really happy to have them, and that's kind of it. But people forgot about them or just never heard about them otherwise.
Yeah, I think that label Tiger Style formed out of a website called Epitonic.
That wow, you're really blowing my mind. That's right. And then I think it became In Sound, from what
Oh,
I
sorry, that's
understand.
what it's Insan, not Epitonic.
But that was something too. That was some associated
Epitonic
company or
was just
something.
it was like a blog. I think it was like in '99 maybe that this guy would just collect all this kind of indie music from around the U.S. and he would have like a bio of the band and a picture, and then he would have like one or two MP3s that you could just download like for free, just like right click, save link as kind of thing.
Yeah, you're so that's something I would have seen when I was a music director, and that's probably how I was finding out about some of these bands at my college radio station. I think they were doing like college promotion.
I mean, there was
Epitonic.
yeah, there were so many great. I mean, I would just spend hours on there, like downloading everything and just listening to it. There was so much music.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I have to. So I'm glad I have these in my pile. But you'll know, and this connects to American Analog Set. Bedhead
Oh, yeah,
out of Texas.
Wichita Falls, Texas.
So this is the first album on Trans Syndicate, but I actually got into them through this record first, the
Okay.
first New Year album from 2000.
Also,
Oh, this one is what takes the cake for me in terms of what the Cadanes have done. But I wouldn't get rid of any of them essentially. But I've talked to you about working at the Jet Set label. They put out a split with Matcha and Bedhead Matcha. It's the last Bedhead release, and Jet Set put that out, and that was sort of what got me following down that path. And then I went backwards, and I discovered this album, and then the other Bedhead records. But
wait, quick time out.
yeah,
Matcha, was that like a super rhythmic band? Like the drums were super like up front?
yeah, they used like a lot of Eastern, like they used a lot of zithers and sort of Eastern instrumentation, but they were coming at things kind of a tortoise vibe to what they were doing actually.
Kind of jazzy drumming style?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
they had a brief moment where they were sort of like, developing and getting to like a point where they were like, like bubbling under, and then they kind of just went away. And then Josh McKay was like it was like two brothers and like another guy, a trio. But Josh McKay ended up helping out with the Cadanes in the New Year a bit. I think he even toured with Deer Hunter, but Matcha was his band.
Cool. I
And
definitely saw Matcha play probably 2001,
yeah,
supporting some other band. I don't remember who, but
yeah, that was right around the time where they were going.
really live.
But they did this EP, Matcha Love Bedhead, Bedhead Love Matcha, and that's when I found about Bedhead working at the label. I went backwards, and then all of a sudden they had this new band called The New Year, which was going to be on the label. Now I've gotten friendly with Matt, who lives here in town, Matt Cadane. So we've connected, and I've talked with him, and we're in contact and everything. So he told me, he's like, I can't believe you used to work at that label. Like we had this, like he told me all these like horror stories with dealing with them, and like
That's funny.
this was gonna be on that label Jet Set, but like it fell through, and Touch and Go picked it up. But
Interesting.
I just, these records, and this one in particular, the song Bedside Table, when I, it just like hit all the right marks of what I wanted to hear at the time. Sort of, the soft dynamics, the sort of great ending, sort of like fuzzy, sort of outro that it has. And then just I hadn't really heard songs, and there's the slowcore thing, but I hadn't really heard songs that would be so deliberate and so sort of intentional in that way, but then at the same time could get so big.
Yeah.
And I just love their voice. I love the Cadanes, the way they would weave their guitars together. Um,
Yeah,
so
I miss Bedhead when they were active.
yeah, I mean, New Year I've seen a few times now, but Bedhead, like I said, I just picked them up when they were transitioning to the New Year, but
Do you have
wonderful.
the Numero Group box set they did?
Well, I didn't buy it because I had all the records. I should have probably, because I think now that's a tough one to grab, and it had a live album in it, but and I think it probably has an amazing book in it or something. But I should have probably grabbed it, but I was like, no, I have all the albums, so I think I'm good. But I don't know. Do you have that one?
No, I don't. I just have, what's it called? Transaction de Novo.
That's the last one is Bedhead, yeah, with
That's the
Albini.
Bedhead one I have.
Wonderful, yeah. That one, and then there's Beheaded,
Mm.
which is kind of not, I don't want to say they're most difficult, but they're most sort of down, and sort of their, well, it all sort of seems to sort of it all makes sense together when you hear each album in succession. But that second album is like sort of a bit of the darker one, I guess I would say.
They're from a town called Wichita Falls, which is like right on the Oklahoma border, which is where my mom grew up.
Oh wow,
If
very
you're
cool.
if you're driving from like the Dallas Fort Worth area to anywhere like northwest, like Colorado, you go through that town.
Huh.
Not much going on there.
No, I imagine. I mean, I think Bubba's still in Texas, and now Matt's here. He teaches. He's a professor here. So yeah, nice guys though.
Cool. All right. Next, this is a Tortoise adjacent band. Again, same friend. Actually, he, not his brother, told me about the side project from Doug McCombs called Brokeback. He had 2 7-inches on Thrill Jockey, and this was his first full length. It's called Field Recordings from the Cook County Water Table. Kind of experimental, I don't know, post jazz kind of stuff. Mostly done on bass guitar and bass six, and some upright bass and rhythms and field recordings. As the name would suggest, field recordings from the Cook County Water Table. This nice kind of blueprint aerial shot of Chicago and the lake.
Yeah, right.
Actually, I found this at a Half Price Books and Music. I don't know if you know that chain.
Heard of it. That's in the Chicago area.
I don't know. It might be in Chicago, but that they're all through Texas.
Okay.
But in Austin, and I picked this up, and I could never find it. I missed it when it came out, and there was actually inside of this jacket a tour poster from Nirvana's In Utero tour, like an original poster folded up that I'm just going to keep in there, which is kind of funny.
It's part of the record, yeah.
Yeah, but Brokeback's great, and they reformed in 2011, I think, and they put out a couple newer full lengths since then on Thrill Jockey that are more full band. And Doug McCombs is playing in Sea and Cake now as well.
Right.
So if you like that kind of bass driven kind of stuff, this is more experimental but very tasteful and really nice.
Yeah, see, I that's a band I've sort of missed. I think you showed Pullman, right, at some point.
Yep.
And I love that record. That's the one I have. And that's sort of a Tortoise adjacent, right?
Yep. Doug McCombs is also in that, and Bundy Brown, and what's the guy's name?
Is Paho in that too?
No, he wasn't in that one.
Okay. Yeah, I just pulled it up.
Maybe he was. I don't believe so though.
Well, Chris Brokaw, is actually in the New Year now. Oh, Paho was on one track actually somehow.
Technically, yes.
In any case, that's a really cool record too. But Brokeback. Well, there's also Shriekback, right? And there's Brokeback.
Yeah, it predates the cowboy movie.
Right. All right. Let's see what I can bounce to here. Okay, interesting. Well, I'm going to show this. This is not really related necessarily, but the microphones.
Oh, great.
The Glow Part 2.
Amazing.
Wow, this one, and I was talking before about like arresting records, and this is one of them that sort of I had to sit down and really take in. I think this is also came out right when No by Heart did. This might have been on 9/11, and it sort of like totally got lost because of it. This is it was on K Records, but this is actually the first reissue, like an expanded triple album.
Oh man, I bet that's kind of shot in value.
Yeah, I mean, like, God, everything has really, right? But I don't think this is in print. I don't even think there's any version of this in print. But I used to listen to this at that time. I didn't have a car, I think, and I was taking the bus. There's another record in here that's sort of about being on buses, but I remember being on a bus late at night going from New York to Albany. For a while, I lived in Albany, and listening to this. And there's parts of this record where there's just really nothing going on. It's sort of like tape hiss, and sort of just like almost field recordings, or just sort of background sort of ambiance. I just remember drifting in out of sleep and just waking up to sort of like Phil Elverum's voice all of a sudden. And then the drums can get really big at some points, and like it's jarring and sort of soothing at the same time. And it's a knockout. The first track, I Want Wind to Blow, is
best.
Unbelievable. There was a episode there's this podcast called Song Exploder, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they talk with him about that track and they break it down. I haven't listened to this in some time, but it's one of these records that, similar to Young Team, when I put it on, it's like it takes me back to a real time and place. And
yeah, very evocative music.
Wonderful.
Did you keep up with all the Mount Erie stuff through the years?
A little bit. I missed it. I had the first Mount Erie, or the microphones Mount Erie, and then I had the Winds poem, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just sort of lost it after that. I know he's still doing stuff, of course, now.
He released something as the microphones
Right.
2 years or last year.
I think it was just last year. Yeah, he brought the name back. I know. I don't think no, I did hear it one time, but I don't own it. I also love It Was Hot We Stayed in the Water before this one. I have that one as well.
Yeah, I don't own any microphones.
Yeah, Don't Wake Me Up is another one I think you can find relatively inexpensive. But yeah, I mean, this is just records that should be repressed for, like, how good they are. I wonder if there's the demand for it. But
maybe
music.
one day,
right?
All the new vinyl listeners and new collectors and young people getting into that music because it's like cool and nostalgic.
They just got to find it. If they find it. I mean, the band Duster, I think it came up at some point. We were talking, and like, who would have thought that pretty semi-obscure San Diego band out of the late 90s all of a sudden would have this resurgence in a box set. People discover it, and anything can happen. So
I'm ready for some Codeine reissues.
Codeine, yeah, White Birch. I almost pulled that out. That's the one record I have. Wonderful, yeah.
Okay, next for me, this is what year is this? Before I show it, 95. Friends of Dean Martinez. Shout out your. This is on Sub Pop. I first heard this music from a skate video called Transworld Uno, which I actually just was talking to my brother today about that soundtrack. We found a lot of music from skate videos as teenagers, but this is one. John Convertino and Joey Burns from now in Calexico were the main two guys in this band, along with a pedal steel player named Bill Elm. And then I think they did 2 7-inches and this, and then Joey and John left to do Calexico full time. They were already doing Calexico, but this is very kind of like hazy desert western kind of Arizona, all instrumental. Shadow of Your Smile is an old standard they redid, but those kind of images are evocative of kind of feeling kind of Arizona at dusk, like heat haze, but really, really cool stuff. And they only did a couple things on vinyl. This is one of their only couple full lengths they did.
And what label was that now? Did you? Oh, it said Sub Pop, right?
Yeah, Sub Pop.
Yeah, that's a band. I don't think I ever connected the dots. That was, I think I've heard it, but I just forgot that was Calexico, Joey Burns, and Convertino.
Yeah,
I don't know that I've heard them at all.
You haven't heard this?
I don't think I have. No.
You might like it.
Okay, I'm gonna write it down on my pad here with Steven and.
I think they did 2 versions of this. They're both a little bit flimsy, but I mean, the music, you can definitely find this stuff on CD super easy and cheap.
Yeah. These are the CDs you can find at the dollar bin, but the records, it's like the other end of the spectrum. Awesome. Well, I should show, I sort of alluded to him before. Another band I found out right around the same time, Modest Mouse. So
great.
Working when I was doing college radio, I discovered this first. This is their compilation of singles and B-sides called Building Nothing Out of Something. It comes from a sort of post-hardcore sort of aspect. And I think for me, what they were doing felt like something completely in its own place. Isaac Brock, what he did on the guitar and his vocals, but his guitar in particular was like really influenced me for my playing. I really was trying to figure out like, what's he doing there? And these harmonic bends and these, his guitar line, it just always seemed really unique. But
gotta have the locking tremolo.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, he, I don't know. I just learned a lot from him, I guess. But this is the one that I got obsessed with and played endlessly, and then up through the moon and Antarctica as well. This one I associate heavily with. This is a long drive for someone with nothing to think about. There's this stretch of road, a highway that connects New England to the city called the Taconic Parkway. And I was living in Albany for a while, and I didn't have a car. I was listening to the microphones on the bus, but then I got a car, a Mazda 626, standard shift. It worked. It was actually quite reliable, but it was always some ideas, always in the back of your head is like, is this thing gonna go down? And so I used to travel between Albany and the city quite a bit, more than who knows why. But this stretch of it's called the Taconic Parkway, and I would always be traveling late, and I would put this on, and as I would turn onto this parkway, this is like a deserted 2-lane parkway. It was 55 miles per hour, but there's deer everywhere, and like there's no shoulder, there's no guardrails, so like deer are just poking their heads out. And I just remember listening, it's like creeping myself out almost, and listening to this record. I think it's Might, track 4, with the real creepy bass line. I think it's, I'm pretty sure that's it. That I just remember driving down, like, is this car going to break down? Am I going to hit a deer? Am I going to fall asleep? I don't know. But I'm going to just, because it's a long record too. I think it took me, I think the reason why I was listening to it in that stretch, because it captured me, and it almost took that whole length of highway.
70 minutes or something, right?
Yeah. So this is the original on Up Records.
Oh, wow. Great.
And I collected this label for a little while. 764 Heroes, another band I love. Duster.
Yeah.
Built to Spill.
Did a split with 764 Hero. That was pretty cool.
Yep. I have like a reissue of that. But then there's, the first Built to Spill album was on Up. I think even their early one as well.
Do you have the Lonesome Crowded West Up pressing?
That's the one, only original I don't have. I have the Glacial Pace, but I bought first in Syracuse. This is on Up. I just love I think I showed this after your cover art video. I just was, I don't know. I was like, is this the Leaning Tower of Pisa? No, like I love all these clouds up here, and the back is wonderful. And it sort of fits the music to me. So, I mean, they just announced the new album I saw today, and I haven't really, they're a different band now, but what they were doing up through 2000 was just, I don't know. I think they were in their own universe.
Yep. Yeah. After Moon and Antarctica, they lost me.
Yeah. I mean, they changed, and that song was a hit. The hit song was good. I could see that as a good song, but like from an album perspective and from what they were doing, it just became something else. So
I remember exactly where I was when I bought The Long Drive. I was on vacation with my family at a Borders Books and Music outside of San Francisco somewhere, and I bought that on CD and had my Discman, and that was my soundtrack for that long weekend.
It's a big one. It brings you in. It just brings you in. It sucks you right in. So all right.
Oh, guess what's next? I'm gonna show you this.
Tristeza.
Nope.
Yeah. See, then who else do we have? Oh, Ida. Yes, I missed this one too.
Will You Find Me? A beautiful, kind of soft folk guitar-based folk, mellow indie rock. There's some minimal drumming. I believe these two were husband and wife or partners, and they both sang a lot on the same song, but really tasteful, quiet, very easy listening, kind of somber late night, really beautiful stuff. I went to CMJ in 2000 or 2001 maybe, and I
was there in that year, or 2099, I think 2000 maybe, but
it was right after this came out. I don't know when this came out. Around that time, 2000.
I think I was at that CMJ. That's funny.
And the Ida opened for Low at the Bowery Ballroom, which is still one of my all-time favorite shows I've ever been to. Pretty exceptional. But I bought this around that same time, and this is a really nice one. It's really kind of romantic, kind of. There's a lot of like love and like close interpersonal kind of lyricism. But this is a band I've never really heard anyone ever talk about on YouTube, or just even people that I know that grew up in that same time that were into, interesting independent music. Like, they've never even heard of this band.
And I think this does have a reissue, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they lived in Brooklyn at the time, around the era when they were making records.
So I remember that CMJ show. I didn't go to it. I remember that because if you remember about CMJ, like, it was free to get in, but you had to get, like, they would only allow so many people in. Yeah. I feel like I went there with my buddy, and we didn't get there early enough or something. But I think I was at that same CMJ.
Earlier today, I saw Elf Power, Oxes, Pele, and Tristeza.
Yeah.
And it was like a big day of music for me. And then we went to this Ida and Low.
Those were fun. Another band from that time. This is a different thing, very different. This is like 2002. Liars. They
Oh,
threw us.
great.
They threw us in a trench and stuck a monument on top.
That was their first full length, right?
Yeah, they had one or two EPs before this. Now this band also just I sort of loosely follow them now. Again, they've sort of become something else. It's mainly only the one Angus Andrew is still in the band. This is on. Is this the Gurn Blanston? Let's see. This is the UK Blast First Mute. They were on Gurn Blanston here in the US, a New Jersey label. And this is another record I discovered right around sort of when I was discovering on most of these records, maybe slightly after. This turned me on to ESG. Their sample that they used on, I think it's on Mr. You're on Fire, Mister, I believe it is.
What's ESG?
ESG was the Bronx funk disco sort of no wave group out of like the late 70s, early 80s in New York. They were on the 99 label. I did a focus on that label.
Okay.
And it's one of these groups that just heavily sampled through mostly hip hop, but then these guys picked up on it and they used it as their backing.
Liars were Australian, right?
The singer is Australian, but the rest of the guys were like New Yorkers. And I saw them at the time with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. It was the time of that Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the Strokes and all of these like La Tigre, all these bands. This was the band I liked the most out of all that. It was like a dance punk thing, but there was sort of a like a real scrappiness to it. Like it felt like anything could happen at any time. And the songs, what intrigued me at first was just some of the song titles. Grown Men Don't Fall in a River Just Like That, Loose Nuts on the Velodrome, The Garden Was Crowded Outside, Mister You're on Fire, Mister, Tumbling Walls Buried Me in the Debris with ESG. Like, I was like, what's the deal? Are these song titles or lyrics? I don't know.
I like that. They've always had really, really cool art direction too for their packaging and stuff.
Yeah, very primitive here. And then their next record, everyone hated it, which was interesting because now I think people have come around on it a bit. I liked it, but I was sort of thrown off a bit because this was like very much like in the electro clash. That was that was the thing that was happening at the time. But the next album, they sort of went more avant-garde and sort of more, abstract and strange. And everyone was like, I'm done with Liars. But then they slowly came around and started doing different things again, and sort of they retained some of their, cred. But this one, I just was like, again, like, what this sounds like something I've never heard exactly. So love it.
I weirdly have the next one I'm going to show connects to Liars.
Nice.
In a weird way. This is a San Diego band from early aughts called The Roots of Orcas.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, I think all their stuff was on Slow Dance Records, which was a small label. Slow Dance Records out of San Diego. Roots of Orcas toured with the first Pinback tour they were supporting, and like Tristeza they supported a couple times, and the album Leaf. And they always played with this band called Oma Yang, which were all close friends of mine from my childhood. I grew up in San Diego until I was like teenage years. But Roots of Orcas, kind of taking a cue from Tortoise. They had two bassists, drums, and they had like some synthesizers and samples. So it's kind of has this, I wouldn't say trip hop at all, but it has this very like kind of like hip hop type of percussion. It's like staccato, like straight ahead, almost like robotic looped drum kind of sounds, but it's actually played live. Really clean guitars, and then like very interesting bass where one guy's playing the lower root stuff and the other one's playing really high chords and stuff. But it's all instrumental stuff. And I saw them on tour in Austin right after I moved there, so 2003, I guess. And I said, "What's the best thing you've heard lately?" And he showed me that Liars record.
Wow. Interesting.
But they had like 3 or 4 full lengths and 2 EPs, but they're all really, really great. Totally overlooked. Like most people have never heard of this band, and like you would never really see it. Roots of Orcas.
What's the title of the album there?
The title of the album is Red House in Winter.
Right. Now you showed one of your videos, Click Attack at Katowi, which is a band that I didn't know about. I have a friend here, Kevin, who was reeling off all these San Diego bands, so I bet he knows about them.
Yeah, for sure. There was this one like underground venue called the Shea Cafe on the campus at UCSD that all these bands, Clickatat and early Jehu and like all those the 3-1G bands and Tristeza and the Locust and Swing Kids and Roots of Orcas and Oma Yang, and they were all just like kind of smart art kids that got into music in high school and took a cue from jazz and experimental and punk and kind of put it all together in a blender. But this is like really accessible, easy to get into, really groovy kind of bass stuff.
Right.
But it's kind of pretty somber too. It kind of has like a darker tinge to it.
That's a whole scene that obviously just, there's just a lot of not. It's a if you weren't there, I guess you probably didn't know about it. I mean, it probably didn't get around all that much. Although my friend here did not live in San Diego at any point was aware of it. So I think you had to be digging pretty deep. But really interesting to all that stuff. Just to happening in San Diego and just people just missing it.
It's strange. There, for those that are interested to learn about that more, there is a decent podcast called "Dig Me Out" that's about '90s music, and they do a whole episode on the San Diego music scene in the '90s, and they have all these different people that were a part of it. Guy from No Knife is on there, and like a club owner and a couple other old band members from other bands kind of just chime in about what it was like. A girl in a band called Jejune, if you remember that name.
I do remember that name. Yeah, I don't know if I was familiar with them, but I remember the name.
Yeah. So anyway, you can learn more on the Dig Me Out. They talk all about it for a long time.
All right. So let's see what else I got here. Well, we mentioned it before. I'll bring it up now. Let's talk about Shellac.
Yeah.
Terraform.
Nice.
I'm sort of not, I wouldn't say new to them, but I didn't discover them at the time. It was like I knew about Big Black a bit and sort of the obvious stuff there, but I came to this, I don't know, within the last only 10 years, really. This is the one that hooked me first. Not 1,000 hertz or, 1,000 hertz is the one people mention most, I think, right? The excellent Italian Greyhound I had for a while. I sort of never really quite got into that one. I heard this one, and what got me was the first track. Do you know this record, Michael?
Not well. I only have At Action Park, which is like the cardboard one with the silver.
Yes, I've since gotten that one. I think that one and 1,000 hertz are the ones sort of people seem to mention the most. This one doesn't, for whatever reason. But what got me, where's the track? I guess it's the first track. Didn't we deserve a look at you the way you really are? It's way over 10 minutes, and it's the kind of song that not a lot seemingly happens upon first listen. It's a very repetitive rhythm, and then Albini will kick in for a moment with sort of like a real those shrapnel like sort of guitar sounds. But the repetitiveness and the hypnoticness of what's happening with the bass and drums, and it's just a slight changes over the 10 minutes or so, and you only really hear it after you sort of listen to it a few times. And it's one of those things sometimes, like the longer something goes on, the more it sort of pulls you in. Like if it was too short, you would have missed it, but the longer it goes on, it's sort of like you get sort of focused on it. This is originally, let's see, this is sort of in the middle period for them, I believe. Like I said, I sort of discovered this on the later side. This is Touch and Go. Yeah. Touch and Go 200. In any case, I'm not seeing the year in front of me, but it's probably 2003. No. Yeah, maybe 2003. Always love the look of what they do, and sort of, just you get the layout of everything they do audio wise.
Yep.
Simple design, but and in a lot of ways simple music in a sense, depending on which record you're hearing. But this is the one that sort of hooked me. Terraform.
Cool.
Yeah. Shellac. What I have left here is not going to tie together so much with what we've been talking about, but I'll see what you show.
Okay. Gonna stick it in the same ballpark. Suicide Squeeze Records, Kent, Ohio's The 6-Part 7. Similar to American Analog Set in instrumentation, meaning that drums, vibraphone, guitar, and bass, no vocals, all instrumental. all their songs sort of have the same feeling. Just these very intricate, clean guitar melodies with just really nice moving bass lines and nice drums, and the vibraphone really brings a nice sparkle. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, especially from this era. This is on Suicide Squeeze Records out of Seattle. I think this was their second full length, and they released one more and an EP, but kind of short-lived, and one of the only bands that ever kind of traveled on their tour. I followed them multiple nights in a row just because I loved so much. And that was through Texas. It was like Houston, then Austin, then Dallas, and then like Oklahoma City or something. So I saw 4, and the most people was at the Houston show, and it was maybe 10. It was like, I was like mad. Like, how are there are this few people? This is such beautiful music, such great music. And the main guitarist and the songwriter, Al Karpinski, works in the Sub Pop warehouse now. Okay. And we've kind of been in touch. We were playing in a Balmorhea show on a tour, and after the show, this guy walked up to me and introduced himself, and he's like, "My name is Alan," da da da. And I was like, and I'd seen him play it, and it's 10 years later, and I was like, "Alan Karpinski?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I'm a huge fan of your music." And I was like, doing the Wayne and Garth, like. But we've since kept in touch a little bit. Really nice guy, but really beautiful stuff.
And this is around 2000 as well?
This is probably 2002, I would guess, something like that.
This is in a band I'd probably heard at some point, and definitely remember hearing in passing, but never probably really totally heard a full record or anything. So
go on to Epitonic, you'll find them.
Yeah, right. Let's see what they're at Epitonic these days. All right. I'm gonna do. Let's see. I'm gonna stick around the same time period and show something a little bit. Let's talk about the late great David Berman. Silver Jews, first record I ever got into by Silver Jews. Discovered this around the same time I discovered like all of David Pajo's music and a lot of the sort of deep Drag City stuff. I went backwards from here and then followed him forwards, of course. The song Tennessee, it was always just a knockout. I keep saying that word knockout tonight, but it really did. Lyrically, I mean, no one was like what no one was doing what David Byrne was doing, just in sort of in how he did it. The songs almost felt like sort of just vehicles for his his thoughts and his ideas and then sort of what he was discussing and talking about. But there's just some actually just beautiful instrumentation on it. He recorded in Nashville, I think, where he was living at the time. Slow Education, wonderful song. This is it's one of the many Drag City, with Drag City records tend to stay in print. So I actually got this rather recently. I grew up with the CD primarily.
That's funny. I was listening to that earlier today.
Whoa, weird.
Not on vinyl, just digitally.
Still, that's it. It's a lot of strange sort of crossing of lines here. Cool, but I've obviously was very affected by his passing, and it was really important music in my at that time, and still. And the Purple Mountains record was huge, and huge for me. So Silver Jews, I haven't really discussed them very much, but and also just Drag City, just so many great records on the Drag City label. One of the hallmark artists for sure. So
I was at a Bill Callahan show when I heard that David Berman passed away. It was like the day before that. And so
no way.
Bill had a kind of like a memorial, kind of told a couple stories, which is sort of out of form for him.
That is, yeah. I've seen him. Bill's come here a few times. I've seen him, of course. My wife and I were supposed to go see the first Purple Mountain show. It was happening not far from us in a town, the city here in New York called Kingston, which is about 2 hours north of New York. And we still went. The show still happened, actually. This was in April or August of 2009 or 2019. We were ready. We were going. So, but obviously that didn't happen. So it was tough. But that record, it's still, there's something about that record, the Purple Mountains record, that for me, like, you'd think it'd be hard to listen to now, but I still sort of get it. I still kind of find a lot of joy in that record. Like he still is sort of, I still think of him in sort of his classic mode, and I still sort of laugh with him. I've always laughed with some of his lyrics. Like he uses humor, he uses sadness, he uses depression, he uses it all. And I can still sort of laugh at some of the lyrics, and they take a different spin now with what happened. But I don't know. I still find a lot of meaning in it for sure.
He was, I think, at his core, a lyricist and songwriter. I actually came to Silver Jews through his poetry book, Actual Air. I
Yeah.
don't know if you looked that up, but I was just browsing the bookshop and I was like, this is a cool cover. And I started reading it. And then the guy at the bookstore was like, that's the dude from Silver Jews. I was like, what's the Silver Jews?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'll get this book then.
Okay. This is Bay Area. This is Tarantel.
Mm.
Tarantel, I guess you could call them post rock, instrumental. I mean, kind of in this. This is 2001.
Is this Tiger Style as well? Were they on Tiger Style? No.
Neurot,
Okay. Uh-huh.
Eurot. This is an album called The Order of Things, and there's a song on here called Adonai, Adonai, that is just absolutely incredible. This is sort of a powerhouse group. This featured Jeffrey Cantu Ledesma, who is now very well known in his own right on Mexican Summer, and Danny Paul Grody was the guitarist. He started the Drift and now plays, kind of fundamental open tune acoustic guitar stuff. Releases on Geographic North and Three Lobed, and also had Trevor Montgomery, who was in a band called Lazarus, and then Young Moon, which was a of mine, and we played with him many times. Balmorhe's first time in San Francisco, we played a little bar called the Hemlock Tavern and played with the Drift. Jeffrey Cantu Ledesma has remixed a song for Balmorhe on our 2017 record, and I actually was just texting with him yesterday, which is funny because I didn't know he was in this band until like 3 or 4 years ago. Tarantel was great. I remember being at Emo's in Austin, Texas, the famous old rock venue, right when Explosions in the Sky started playing, and they had just signed to temporary residence.
Yeah.
The bassist was wearing a Tarantel shirt, and I was like, "What's that?" And that is a very strong memory because you learned about bands from other bands' shirts a lot of times in those days.
Yeah, it could be something simple as that. It could be sort of, obviously seeing bands live and seeing the openers was a whole bit, really important for turning me on to certain bands.
Or like, if they had a 7-inch for $3,
Yeah.
probably the show. But Tarantel, the song Adonai is the standout on this for me.
That reminds me of, that was a band I checked out at some point. I ended up getting some Jeffrey Cantu Ledesma records on Type. I have one on Type, I think it is.
Oh, I think that's maybe his first one under his own name.
I think so. It's got like a pinkish blurry cover. It's beautiful.
Love is a Stream.
I think I think that's it. Yeah, I have that. There was a time where I was really buying a lot of that sort of, ambient, noisy, sort of like droney stuff, and I was buying that and Emeralds and Lanois. Was it Lanois? Yeah, Lanois. Yeah.
Jeffrey lives not too far from you. He just moved upstate. I think he lives in a small town near Woodstock somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, I know a bunch of musicians have moved up that way, sort of like in between, the Capital District and New York City, about a couple hours up. Yeah.
Yeah, someone told me, I have a friend in Hudson. Actually, the producer and engineer we worked with on Balmorhe's record, The Wind, lives in Hudson. He said that he read something in the Times that I think Kingston had the largest population increase that it's like ever seen or something.
A lot of people, a bunch of people moved there. People had been moving to Hudson. Hudson's become like a little enclave of sort of culture, and there's a ton of antiques there. And but Kingston too, like I said, we went there, we actually didn't go to that show, but we ended up just going there to see some friends that we had there. So, but in any case, it's people are looking for options, sort of close to the city, but not too close. But that also reminds me of Tarantel. Reminds me of a band called Movie Tone, which I have a few of their records. They're a English group, but they're sort of coming from into the post rock thing, and they were on Drag City. And I remember checking out both bands at the same time. I don't have any Tarantelle records, but I do have a couple of Movie Tone albums. So I'm gonna, let's see. So I should pick a couple of big. Let's just pick the biggest band for me growing up, sort of that spawned interest.
Curious. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so Dirty by Sonic Youth was the record that I first discovered. I don't own that one. I still have the tape, I think, of that. Of course. And then I think I moved to this, their 94 album, Experimental Jet Set Trash and No Star. This is the original.
I've never heard that album.
Oh, well, this has Bull in the Heather, which was their biggest radio song.
I've definitely heard that song and seen that video.
This is a good record too. There's a lot of interesting tracks on this one. It's definitely not a commercial album. Like their early 90s records are considered commercial-ish. This is sort of their return to getting more experimental, I would think, although Bull in the Heather was definitely a good radio song, sort of fit right in the pocket with the Breeders. But this, what ultimately became massively important for me. This is the Enigma Blast first edition. Yeah, this is I'm pretty sure this is the first US. It comes up.
That's probably hard to get these days.
It wasn't like this, like right now everything is, but I remember I bought my copy of Sister on SST in a Brooklyn thrift store for $10. It's like not that long ago. I don't know what's going on. Records are in demand. I mean, all kinds of records, but yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Album covers.
Yes.
And one of the all-time best opening album track too.
Well, that's what did it. You had Teenage Riot, Silver Rocket, The Sprawl, those first three tracks. I heard it I had the tape, because what happened was I was working at this grocery store, and this guy, I almost remember his name. He was really into all the Minneapolis bands, the Huskers, the Replacements. And so he was, see, I have 4 siblings, 2 older brothers, a sister, and a younger brother. But I'm the only one who was really digging into music. I mean, we listened to the Doors in the household. That's what I remember listening to. So this guy that I worked with at this grocery store when I was 16, 17 was turning me on to all these bands. And I'm like, you know about Sonic Youth, right? And I had to show him the Dirty tape. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, but you don't have Daydream Nation? I was like, no, what's that? And he literally after work took me to the local, I think it was a Wall or whatever the heck it was. And he's like, here, buy this tape. And it was the Daydream Nation tape. I ended up getting this, I don't know, probably around 2000. And I just remember hearing Teenage Riot and just being like, the experience people had hearing like Nirvana for the first time. I definitely had that, but hearing that song was really the feeling I had that I think people were talking about with Nirvana. Like I just was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great feeling.
And from there, along with Dinosaur Jr. and Pavement at that time, it was those 3 bands I was just like obsessively listening to as much as I could. So
amazing. Wow.
Yeah, crucial moment.
Balmorhea is contributing a song to a undisclosed compilation soon, but Lee Ronaldo is also doing one, which is kind of exciting.
Very cool. Yeah, we've gotten to know Lee actually because my wife's a teacher, and she actually taught both of his kids in Manhattan. So she stayed in touch with Lee and his wife Leah. So yeah.
Balmorhea, we did a duo tour once in 2015. The Netherlands, we added a show last minute as an opening act, but we didn't know who it was until the day before, and it was Thurston Moore. So it was very, very different musical. I mean, he didn't know who we were or care who we were. It didn't matter. We were like,
cool to be there.
But I remember watching them sound check, and after I was standing on the side of the stage in this theater, and he's a big tall guy, and I was like, introduced myself and told them that we were the opening act, and he was just kind of like, okay, and I was like, have a good show, like, never mind.
I guess we'll just go play, and if you want to check us out, that's great.
No way in hell he saw us play.
Yeah.
All right, last one for me.
Okay.
One of my all-time favorite bands that almost no one ever knows about, and one of those things like the 6-part 7 like hurts me because this person as a songwriter is so influential to me in my own like musical journey, especially like adolescence and being on my own for the first time. This is 3 Mile Pilot. 3 Mile Pilot is a San Diego band from the late 90s. They actually got signed to, I think, Capitol, some huge label, after their first full length, and that went really poorly and they got dropped. This is an EP on Gravity Records, which was kind of a wild label from San Diego. Beautiful artwork. And they released a couple others on Headhunter Records before breaking up. The bass player of this band went with Rob Crow to form a band called Pinback, which got a lot of success. And the guitarist and main songwriter Paul Jenkins went on to form the Black Heart Procession, which had, I don't know, 4 or 5 records, also on Cargo and Headhunter. And I believe they did a re-release on they reformed years later on Temporary Residence. Mm-hmm. Some sort of touch and go connection to there. Yeah. But 3 Mile Pilot is very dark music. Not for like the faint of heart. It's like there's nothing really uplifting about it, but there's something that's really, really at the core of it that's like very fundamental and intimate. Don't know what they're talking about. I have no clue what the lyrics mean. But it's pretty cool music. It doesn't really sound like anything else. He plays a musical saw. There's like lots of strange like chanting vocals in the background, but very, very straight ahead drums usually, and like pretty interesting. You can tell that it was influenced from like, 60s and 70s rock in the guitar kind of arrangements. But yeah, I love the artwork. It's so great. And he does all the penmanship. I think a lot of anything that's white, I know on the album Another Desert, Another Sea, which is my favorite, he did it all with whiteout on by hand. Okay. I met him a few years ago and talked for a long time about his handwriting because it's so unusual. And he said that they actually made a font out of it, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, nice.
For all this stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
And they do a cool cover of By This River, Brian Eno track on this one that's kind of nice. I got this.
Oh, good.
I was going to say, I bought this record on the same vacation that I bought the Modest Mouse CD at the Borders, but this was the first time I ever went to Amoeba in San Francisco.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a band that I've probably investigated, but I came to them from Pinback. I got into Pinback for a while. Blue Screen Life and the first self-titled, I guess it is. Yeah, I was obsessed with those few records for a little while, and then I sort of drifted away. But I did go heavy into a Black Heart Procession phase as well. I have one of their records. I think it's 3.
They're so good.
Is the one I have? Yeah, it's an early one I have. I know I still have it. So yeah, really, that's another little interesting sort of avenue of, and that was San Diego as well. Were they San Diego? Yeah.
Actually, Jimmy from Tristeza and Album Leaf played bass in the Black Heart Procession for some time.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Paul from 3 Mile Pilot now owns a record shop, co-owns a hotel, but he has like a record shop as the gift shop. So like, I believe it's in like the Hillcrest area. I'm not really certain, but
of San Diego.
Yeah, kind of in like the cool area of town, but he co-owns this hotel. Actually, the bassist from Pinback, Zach, who played in 3 Mile Pilot's dad, was the architect of the hotel. Weird world.
All comes together. All right. Let's see. Yeah, let's go. I'm gonna do something. I have some heavy hitters here. I'm gonna go something a little bit different. Everyone knows about Lou Barlow and Sebadoh, but I want to talk about the Folk Implosion. Cool. Forgotten, maybe. They had the song on the kids soundtrack, right? What's the name of that song? I'm forgetting it, but
not Natural One.
Yeah, Natural One. That's it. Yeah. Which is not on this album. This is sort of, I guess I heard that. It's hard to remember specifically where I got this. It might have been my wife Angela who actually handed me this, because she's a big Sebadoh, Lou Barlow fan for sure. Cool. This is from was it 90? There's a few folk implosion albums. There was like an ill-fated record that came out with like a whole different like band that no one caught on to. One part lullaby, which I quite liked, but didn't really register. And then these two records. This is, oh yeah, the Communion 3 label, I think it is. A Communion label, out of San Francisco. So this is him and the guy named Jonathan Davis, not the corn guy, but Lou and Jonathan Davis doing, started as like a lo-fi project, a home sort of recording thing, and it slowly, escalated a little bit into like a full-fledged band, and they had the kids song and everything. This is the one, Dare to Be Surprised, that I think is the most worth your time. The other record before this, forgetting the title on that, but I do own that as well. A little more sort of harsh, a little more lo-fi. This one's got very simple drum machines, sort of catchy songs, like a lot of sort of cheap organ sounds that I dig, and Lou Barlow and Jonathan Davis sings as well. And there's a few tracks on here. The one I think we should do is Burning Paper. Really hypnotic, sort of cyclical, sort of trancy sort of sound to it.
Nice. I remember seeing that. That's such an iconic cover. I remember that.
Yeah. It's very much like a 90s sort of almost Daniel Johnston-esque primitive sort of thing. But yeah, I'm a band. I don't know. People talk about Sebadoh and Dinosaur Jr. I don't feel like Folk Implosion has sort of retained any remembrance. I don't know.
I love the name too.
Yes, great name. Totally. So
Blues Explosion and the Folk Implosion.
Oh, right. That was the gag, right? I think that's exactly what he was doing, which is another band. I wish I should have pulled some Blues Explosion back. I've actually been playing some of their records recently.
Nice. Sebadoh earlier too. That's so weird.
You were playing Sebadoh today?
Yeah, the album with like the naked baby in the bathroom on the front. I forgot the name.
Harmacy.
Yeah, this song called Skull is one of my absolute favorites.
Great song. Absolutely. I actually recently got a vinyl pressing of that, just like a regular reissue that Sub Pop has in print. So
I found Sebadoh through the same skate video that I found Prince Adine Martinez through.
Is it the exact same video?
Yeah, this video, it's called Uno. I think it's on YouTube. I'll send it to you. You should. It has like Supertone, Guided by Voices, like all like Archers of Loaf, like all those bands. For those who don't know, Dom and I met through the YouTube world.
Yeah, we should talk about because if this is on the radio, so.
Yeah, we met through the YouTube world. I show records and things that I get, but I also play music in a band called Balmorhea, Balmorhea. This is our new one. It's called The Wind. Our debut release with Deutsche Grammophon, and it just came out a few weeks ago. I just got it a month ago, I guess, exactly. This Friday, a month ago. So
yeah.
Sounds good on vinyl too.
Beautiful cover. I'll put links below in the video, and I'll sort of I'll put a lead into it on the radio as well, so people remember that. But yeah, congrats on the record.
Yeah, thanks. This was a long time coming. We finished it right before the pandemic hit, so.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and we got the next one. We just scheduled the next one. So we mixed and mastered this record in Hudson, and we're gonna do the next one there too. So.
Oh, okay.
In your neck of the woods this fall.
Oh, let me know when you do. We can we'll find a place to hit. Actually, I've been meaning to get back down there. So.
Great. Yeah, we'll have a few days off, I think.
There's some couple nice new shops in the area for sure. So in Hudson Valley. So.
Great. Sounds good.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. And
yeah, totally, man. I'll be looking out for your videos, and till the next time.
Cheers, man.
All right. See you, Michael.